Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. Of course, our collaboration with the Art Society of Trinidad and Tobago continues, and our art exhibit this week is definitely one to remember. Nicholas Huggins joins us this morning to share some artwork and also his upcoming exhibition. Good morning, Nicholas, and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you with us on the show again. Thank you so much. Such great work this morning. All of us were taken by one of the pieces and definitely brought memories, which we'll talk about as we go through. But first of all, let's speak about your journey so far. I mean, you did join us before. You shared a little bit of your journey, but of course you've grown since then. So what's been happening?
So in the last year, I've really been, so I had my first solo exhibition at the end of last year. And I was like, you know what, let me take some time off from creating. But by about May, I started to create this new body of work. And I was like, you know what, let me strike while the iron is hot. Like I feel in this really creative zone. And so I decided, you know what, let me see if I could put together a new collection of work to really showcase and maybe a new exhibition. And so that kind of has now culminated in my upcoming exhibition, Field Trip. And the last exhibition was called Up to Now. And it was really a focus on all of my work up to that point in my sort of creative journey. And this exhibition is basically all new works. Just everything has been done within the last 12 months, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Field Trip, that's such an interesting theme. What put you in that mindset to choose that, and what did you draw from to do your work?
It's a good question. So I am all constantly writing down potential names of things, whether it's names of pieces, potential names of exhibitions, or whatever the case is. So Field Trip was something that I'd randomly written down. So it's kind of, the concept is that it's kind of a field trip into my imagination. And I'm sort of hoping that the people who come to see the show, I'm taking them on a journey through the exhibition, taking them on a field trip through the exhibition, you know. And I think it also adds that sort of nostalgic, when you're in primary school, it's like, yeah, we're really excited to go on this field trip. And it's like, it builds up this sense of excitement, but it's also a field trip into my creativity, my creative process, and what kind of lives inside of my brain, basically.
Well, I know. I mean, we see from the flyer that good food, Trinbagonian food, lives inside of your brain. So we're looking forward to that. And definitely we can already see that tradition and, of course, that quintessential Trinbagonian feeling from your work. When is your exhibition starting?
So the exhibition opens on December the 14th, as you mentioned, at the Art Society. And that's Saturday night from 5 to 9 p.m. And then it continues December 16th to 19th, daily from 12 to 6 p.m.
Now, one of the things you would have mentioned is we're going in a field trip into your imagination, and also beautifully a field trip into Trinidad and Tobago. But before we get into your pieces, let's talk a little bit about your process particularly, because they're so full of life, they're so vivid. And would you say your process is different to others when it comes to producing art?
I can't really speak to that. I could kind of give an insight in terms of how I work. So I pretty much keep a sketchbook. I try to draw almost every single day. I also take a ton of photographs, like on my daily drives or whatever the case is. So I'm constantly collecting inspiration, whether that's through my own sketches or photographs, or just I might hear a line in a song and write it down, and that might inspire something. So once I get to that point, I sort of then try to refine these sketches. And then once these sketches to a point where I think that the composition is really nice, then I create all the artwork, mostly on the iPad, actually. Yep. So it's all digitally done. And so my entire process starts very analog in the sketchbook. And then when I feel like it's gotten to a really nice point within the process, then I go onto the iPad and then I sort of add in all the colors and refine the illustrations to what you'll see here.
Okay, beautiful. So let's go into your imagination right here on the Now Morning Show and start with this piece that is behind me. It's a piece that we all spoke about this morning because everybody, I'm sure you know somebody who has driven a car like this at some point in time. What is the name of this piece?
This piece is called Sunny.
There we go.
Yeah.
Sunny. And walk us a little bit through the process of creating this piece.
Sure. So how this piece kind of came about was I actually saw that car parked up, and I was driving down, and I was driving through St. James actually, and I saw the car, and I took a photo of it, and I was like, I'm gonna just keep this photo stored in the bank for future reference.
Right.
And then I have like maybe 500 photos of houses all over Trinidad that I always kind of draw a reference from, and the house was actually based on a house that I saw in Woodbrook, and so what I do is I try kind of compile all these different pieces of inspiration into one composition, and this piece is actually a really nice example of that, where I've collected all these different photos and references and kind of thrown it together into one composition.
Yeah.
And the whole point of it is for it to feel very familiar
Yeah.
to anyone from Trinidad and Tobago. Like anyone in Trinidad and Tobago could see this, and it reminds them of maybe their uncle's house, their aunt's house, or their own house. And almost every single person who's seen this, there's some person in their life who used to drive this car.
Yep, pretty
right?
much.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful piece, and I love the fact that you said you've taken all these photos around Trinidad and Tobago and you've been able to sort of bring them together. Very nostalgic and very much home. So let's go to this next piece, which can be nostalgic or can be right now in Trinidad and Tobago. What is the name of this piece?
So this piece is called Snow Cones, and once again, I literally was driving through by Nelson Mandela Park, and I was heading home, and I saw this snow cone man just leaning up on his cart, looking at a football match.
Okay.
And so I was like, I liked it, but I wanted to include poetries in it. So I was like,
Right.
let me change the scene to the savannah. And what I actually did was I got a photo. Literally, it was raining through my car. And it wasn't really like a great photograph. So what I did was I leaned up on a bicycle at home and I used my own self as like the quote unquote model for this piece, right? Based on how this snow cone vendor was leaning up on his cart. And so I was able to kind of pull that. And yeah, as you said, this could be today or this could be 20 years ago or whatever the case is. So in most of my pieces, I want to give it a sense of, it could be in current time or it could be this sort of very nostalgic scene, because I believe that like we look back on even these times and feel very nostalgic about it in how many ever years, right? So I think that a piece like this, it gives you that sense of nostalgia, but it also gives you that sense of present time.
That's quite interesting. As you said, you took a photo of yourself to be able to get the silhouette, let's say. So how long does that process take?
So this piece I worked on for maybe 2 years.
Wow.
Right? And I started it, I knew what I wanted, but I think I was actually chatting with someone about this yesterday evening, actually. And I did several iterations of it, and it just wasn't at that point. And then finally, something clicked. I don't know if maybe my creative ability caught up with what my vision for this piece was, but literally I sat down one day after 2 years of working on this piece, and I just executed it in a few hours.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And speaking of beautiful, let's go to this next piece. Well, I see Solid as a Rock is in the background, but I'm not going to jump the gun. What's the
Solid
name
as
of
a
this
Rock
piece?
is the title, yeah.
And let's just walk through this one.
Yeah, once again, if anyone who lives in Maraval would probably be familiar with this fruit vendor. Once again, just snapping photos, remembering things on my daily drives, and that was just one of those pieces that I kind of always drive past and I come across in my day-to-day life. So I decided I'll kind of commit it to this very permanent form of art, you know?
And as you say, snapping photos, which we've discussed with these other ones, what about this photo below here? This is from, of course, your upcoming exhibition.
This one is from the upcoming exhibition. So this one is called High Hope. And this piece is really kind of from my imagination. And this isn't based on any photos at all. This was really just based on sort of memories and places that I've been. And yeah, it was just something that I sat down and I really wanted. In my work, I try to treat the composition almost like a play.
Right.
And so I have like a foreground, so you could see like the leaves in the foreground. Then I have a middle ground where you have the mountain with the houses, and the bird kind of exists in that middle ground. And then you have the background of the guy in the boat kind of driving off into the sunset. And then you have the background, which is the sky. So this is really just kind of like an epitome of how I try to build my pieces with those different layers.
And it's amazing because you can see the layers, and you can also see layers in the one above it as well. Was this taken from a photo?
This was taken from many photo references that I would then kind of pull together, and it's actually based on a very famous painting by Vincent van Gogh. And I basically wanted to create like a localized version of that, so I use a poetry version of that famous painting of his.
It's absolutely beautiful, and something that we love about your work as well is the fact that you always have this local flavor put onto it. So this next one here, what is the name of this one?
This one is called Blood Moon.
Okay.
Right? And I actually, funnily enough, if you remember, maybe a few months ago, they had a blood moon.
Yeah.
And I actually finished this piece in that week. And so I was like looking for a title, and because I finished it in the week that they had this blood moon, that's why I titled it that.
Now, was this from your imagination or was this from a photo?
Once again, from my imagination. I think I was like in a boat on the North Coast, and I saw something very similar happen. I didn't have my phone on me, so I wasn't able to take a photo of it, but I just committed it to memory, and then I was then able to sort of get back home, work on sketches and that type of thing. And a lot of times I'll have an idea and it'll just kind of sit down for a little while. And then this was one of those, it sits down, you go through several iterations, and then eventually you get that final product.
Definitely a unique piece, that is for sure. And this last one that we have here on set from your upcoming exhibition, what is the name of this one?
This one is called Bayview.
Okay.
Yep. So it is, once again, one of those pieces that I kind of worked on for a little while.
Right.
And I've always wanted to illustrate a macaw. So I was like, cool, that's going to be definitely in my show. I want to do a macaw. And I did the macaw first. I did the illustration of the macaw first. And then I was trying to figure out what background to add in. And people always have been asking me, like, you should do something of maracas. And I haven't really done a lot with maracas. So I decided I'll use Maracas Bay as the background of this. And I kind of use that vantage point of the Bayview bar just before Maracas, and so that's why it's called Bayview.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Nicholas, where can we find you on social media if we need to get in contact with you?
I'm on Instagram at Nicholas Huggins Creative, and all the information for the exhibition I've been sharing on my feed, on my stories and that type of thing. So if anyone finds me on Instagram, they'll be able to get all the information for the upcoming show.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to the field trip. It's a pleasure to have you on set, and thank you for the pieces that you've loaned us for the week. We will be enjoying them.
Thank you.
Nicholas Huggins with his upcoming exhibition, Field Trip, happening from December 14th. You don't want to miss it, and you don't want to miss what's coming up on the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.